Good afternoon, you guys. Good afternoon and welcome. Welcome to the Bible Study Studio. My name is Sonia McCullough Lockridge, and I joy to come to you in this fashion. Now, today is day 18 of 90 days through the Word. And today we read through the book of Judges, starting in Judges 3 through roughly Judges chapter 15. Now, a distinct pattern of evil is presented in the book of Judges. The key phrase evil in the sight of the Lord is repeated 7 times in the entirety of the book of Judges. So, the land has rest for 40 years, and the children of Israel are evil in the sight of the Lord, and he puts them under a king, King Eglon, for 18 years who oppresses them. Remember yesterday we said that forced labor is reinstated. Now, the Lord sends Ehud to deliver the children of Israel by murdering King Eglon. He just happens to be a fat guy. And he's murdered, and Ehud becomes the king. Once again, evil is presented in the sight of the Lord, and the children, Ehud, he died. Okay, somebody always dies. This is the pattern. There is a death. I wrote it down yesterday. Let me see. There is death, and then this is the pattern. Death, decay, deceit, deliverance, and then in there is the dropping of a whole lot of tears where the children of Israel cry out to the Lord. That's the pattern. And so this pattern is repeated throughout the book of Judges. So, Chapter 4, new king Jabin, he's the king for 20 years. Judge Deborah is the judge, and the army's charge is Sisera is in charge of the army, and he's a mean guy. And Deborah and Barak conquer the army of Sisera, but Sisera gets away. But lo and behold, Jael, somebody's wife, comes and puts a tent peg through the actual Sisera person and kills him, and he dies. And Jabin is destroyed. So, that is chapter 5. That is chapter 4. In chapter 5, we enjoy Deborah's song, and it takes up the entirety of the chapter. The song of Deborah and all that happened and how they're praising Jael and everything is the entirety of chapter 5. And it is quite beautiful. And it is presented as poetry in this text. And we can see the change of the format of the text when we get to this poetry if we're using a translation that presents poetry as poetry. So, Deborah's song, whole chapter. Chapter 6. Evil, once again, Midian. Israel cries out to the Lord. The Lord sends a prophet. He sends the prophet Gideon, who just happens to be the weakest and the least. The weakest tribe, Manasseh, and the least person that would be sent to do the thing. So the Lord commands Gideon to pull down his father's altar and the Asherah, and they had started worshiping Baal, and to build an altar to the Lord. Of course, when he does this, the Midianites get mad and war starts. So, Here in this chapter, we find the situation with the fleece, the wet fleece and the dry fleece. And then in chapter 7, the Lord reduces Gideon's army to 300, from 22,000 to 300 by testing. The Lord sends Gideon to the camp to listen to the chatter, and the chatter is all about Gideon. And he returns to divide his 300 men into three smaller camps, and they do defeat Midian with empty jars and torches and trumpets. Chapter 8. The golden earrings. Gideon collects a bunch of golden earrings, and he eventually buys himself a home and gets old. But guess what happens? The people of Israel forget the Lord, and they forget what Gideon had done for them. And they forget all about any sort of steadfast love. Now, Gideon has 70 sons, and one of these sons of the 70 is a son of his concubine. And this son, who lives not with the other 70 sons, eventually, after Gideon's death, murders all of his brothers, except for one. He murders all of his brothers except for one, and this particular son's name is Amalek. And the son's name that he does not murder, because he was hiding, is Jotham. So, because Amalek is a crazy dude, he goes to war, of course. In chapter 10, evil is once again presented. The Lord is angry. There's 18 years of oppression. Israel cries out. The Lord recounts all what he's done and vows to save them no more. Chapter 11. Although once hated, Jephthah becomes the head of Gilead to fight the Ammonites. He recounts the Lord's way and makes a tragic vow in regards to his only daughter. So he says to the Lord, if you let me win this battle against the Ammonites, then the first thing that comes out of my house, I will do a thing to. And the first thing that came out of his house was his only daughter. And so after 60 days, he let her, she came back. She went away for like 2 months and lived her best life and came back after 60 days. And he did what he promised he would do. He vowed and he did what he said that he would do. Now, chapter 12, Jephthah judges Israel for 6 years and dies. Okay? He dies. People die, evil, die, evil, die, evil. So then there's another judge, Isban. He judges Israel for 30 years and he dies. Elon judges Israel for 10 years and he dies. Abaddon judges Israel for 8 years and he dies. Once again, chapter 13, the children of Israel go back to their old ways, their old evil ways. The Philistines, the Lord allows the Philistines to rule over them. And they ruled over them for 40 years. And then one day, the angel of the Lord presents himself to yet another barren woman. And she conceives Samsonite, the Nazarite. And a Nazarite is somebody who is dedicated to the Lord from birth. So that's chapter 13. Chapter 14, Samson scrapes some honey from the carcass of a lion. And he meets this Philistine woman, and he falls in love with her, and he wants to be with her, although she is a Philistine. But this is the Lord's way of conquering the Philistines. He presents a riddle to them, and they can't solve the riddle, so they get mad. So they get mad, and the beginnings of Samson and Delilah start in chapter 14 of the book of Judges. Tomorrow we will meet Samson and Delilah. We will find out a little bit more about them. And in all likelihood, I believe tomorrow we see Samson lose his strength. So that's all I have for us today. It was a lot. My hair is wet, and I'm sorry. I was a little distracted today about the wetness of my hair. I thought I had it completely dry, but then it's not dry. So by the end of tomorrow will be in the book of Samuel, and we will linger in the book of Samuel for a while because Samuel is a pretty big book. So we'll start getting into the thicker books, and we'll have more time to linger in the Word, but it's still going to be fast. It's still going to be a fast time of communing with the Lord through His Word and consuming that which He has placed before us. This is Sonia signing out. I hope you guys have a blessed day in the Lord.